The United Nations Secretary General recently said we are one misunderstanding, one miscalculation away from nuclear Armageddon. Mm-hmm. And he said we must reverse course.
Do you have any idea how many nuclear weapons we have? How many?
So, on ready for launch status, meaning they're forward deployed, meaning they can be launched in seconds or minutes from the president's order. Seconds or minutes. We have 1,770. The numbers change a little bit every year. Russia has 1,674. That says nothing about the thousands more in storage that we have ready to, that could be pulled out. So we have approximately 5,000 each. Why do we need that many nuclear weapons? You must be asking yourself.
We need that many because they have that many. And they need that many because we have that many.
And guess what the number was at the all-time high, which was in 1986?
10,000.
70,000.
70,000? Wow.
And so the setup of the book, it's like 50 pages or something. It's like how we got here. I explain how America sort of had this insane buildup of nuclear weapons during the 1950s. There was one point in 1957, this bomb went off in 1952, and the military-industrial complex just went ba-ba-ba-boom, right? At one point, we were building, on average, 5 nuclear weapons a day. A day. And then you're building the weapon. That's just the bombs, the warheads. You're building weapon systems because we have a triad. We don't just have the ICBMs in the silos in the ground. We have nuclear-armed, nuclear-powered submarines outfitted with submarine-launched ballistic missiles. And then we also have the bombers. So we have a triad. But during the Cold War, we had... we were shooting tactical nuclear weapons out of cannons. Billy Wall was halo jumping a hand-carried portable nuclear weapon out of an airplane in case we needed to use it on the battlefield.
How do you, I know you don't like to give your opinion, and if you don't want to, that's okay. How do you feel about having, what did you say, 1,106?
1,770 us.
1,770.
Yeah.
How do you think we need that?
That's an opinion I think that I own, which is absolutely not. Look, my lane is as an investigative journalist, reporting the facts, doing the interviews, and setting them down on the record. But of course, you get to have an opinion at some point. Mm-hmm. Certainly when times have changed. We are back in the original buildup. It was us and Russia and then China in the early 60s. Now there are 9 nuclear-armed nations, many of which are in direct conflict with one another. All of the new technology, artificial intelligence, this is crazy. It's like the United Nations Secretary General recently said we are one misunderstanding, one miscalculation away from nuclear Armageddon. Mm-hmm. And he said we must reverse course, and we must. So I was in Brussels talking about my book because people were interested in it. What I learned is because they said to me, and these are disarmament groups, right? They said to me, your book condenses in a really dramatic, terrifying way what we have been trying to convey to world leaders for decades with a lot of information. And what we're trying to convey is this is madness. So the progress is that we've gone from 70,000 nuclear warheads to there are a total of approximately 12,500 today amongst the 9 nuclear-armed nations. The disarmament people will tell you that's 12,500 too many. Mm-hmm. The United Nations recently created a treaty called, I'm going to mess this up, the IPT, INW, the International Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And their idea is that gradually nations should begin to reduce their arsenals down to zero. Gradually. And so the opinion I would have, which seems like a responsible journalist, that sounds like a really good idea. And the word gradual is important because, okay, so we've been talking about the horrors of nuclear war, but you can also talk to proponents of deterrence, as I do, who will tell you we must have a nuclear arsenal because the bad guys do.
Mm-hmm. That's where I would fall.
Right? And by the way, that's the easier, it really is the easier, quicker conclusion.
I mean, I feel like it would be great if there were no nuclear weapons. However, we don't play nicely with one another, right? And so I think I'm just going to go off on a tangent here and say that the only way, look, if I were president or in charge of this country, the only way I would even consider eliminating our nuclear weapons is if we had a defense capability that was able to eliminate any nuclear weapon on the way here. Well,
yes, the idea is absolutely that the disarmament idea isn't, we should give up all of our nuclear weapons and then just believe that North Korea and Russia and China and Iran, or, Iran doesn't have the weapon yet, all of these other countries will just give up their capability. That would be madness. Mm-hmm. But the disarmament that when we went from 70,000 down to 12,500, Russia reduced their arsenal, alongside of us. So reduction is possible.
Did we really reduce the arsenal though, or have we developed better? Maybe better is the wrong word. Have we developed more powerful and more devastating nuclear missiles to where we don't need 70,000? Maybe I'm pulling numbers out of nowhere right now, but just for example, maybe one of today's nuclear warheads is equivalent to 100 back in 1950s.
Except for that's not the way it is.
Okay.
Which is so interesting because you and I both know the weapon systems that are, the kinetic weapon systems that are used by the military in ground wars or air wars have been advancing like nobody's business as technology has been advancing. The nuclear weapons are essentially the same. Not much has changed. We haven't built any new nuclear weapons since Clinton was president because he signed a treaty prohibiting that. And Russia complied. So allegedly, we do not build any new nuclear weapons. It would be a massive violation of a treaty. All of our nuclear weapons are decades old, which is a whole other debate because now the Defense Department has just asked for I think it's $900 billion to upgrade the arsenal because it is old and the ICBMs are old. So this is it's like you're suddenly down the rabbit hole and going, wait a minute, how did I wind up here? But the number of nuclear warheads is simply the number of nuclear warheads. What's another grim consideration is that dismantling a nuclear warhead is also a dirty process. And there's a plant in Texas that does this, which itself is like a major target because it has all the dismantled plutonium and uranium cores. So the eyes can glaze over with isn't it just easier to have an arsenal of nuclear weapons that's the same size as ours? Which is why I point to the people like ICANN, like the Arms Control Association, who actively work on these disarmament issues with the United Nations. And the point of a book like mine is to make it digestible for the average person to understand that this many nuclear weapons is madness. An accident or a miscalculation could lead to a nuclear war. And it's only going to end one way. Almost no one disagrees with that. Once nuclear war starts, it ends in Armageddon.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.